Thanks very much indeed for your company and your calls. We'll be going back to our discussion about the neo-Nazi rally here in London and what, if anything, should be done about it in just a moment or two. But first, let me tell you about a story making news this afternoon. A top scientist and Nobel Prize winner, a man called Sir Tim Hunt, has apparently told a conference that female scientists are prone to crying in laboratories. He now apologised for his comments, which won't surprise many people. He said to have told the World Conference of Science Journalists in South Korea, "Let me tell you about my trouble with girls. 3 things happen when they're in the lab. You fall in love with them, they fall in love with you, and when you criticise them, they cry." Well, not surprisingly, many people have been outraged by that, but my next guest, Katie Hopkins, Sun columnist, I'm sure you know very well indeed, is defending him, and she joins me now in the studio. And incidentally, you can watch all this live on the website at lbc.co.uk right now. How on earth do you, as a woman, defend comments like that?
Oh, as a woman?
Yes.
Would it be different if I was as a man?
Well, you could expect a man to snigger, you know, but perhaps not all men. I wouldn't snigger, but you can expect some men to snigger. How do you defend it as a woman?
As a woman, I titter instead. Look, Sir Tim Hunt is a great guy. He's a funny guy. He has a dry British wit. Now, if you take a load of scientists, specifically South Korean scientists, who've got about as much sense of humour as my mother-in-law.
And journalists, apparently.
And she's dead. Yeah. Then you're not really going to get much of a laugh back. But actually, if you read behind his words and you stop flapping your bingo wings and moaning just because you're a girl, you'll find that actually he was being quite truthful. You know, his point about falling in love not being terribly helpful is because he thinks it creates an imbalance, an unequal sort of playing field, and it disrupts the science. But it's said in
disparaging tones, isn't it? I didn't hear it, but I mean, just looking at the quotes, you can sense it's said in a disparaging way, it undermining women.
And he was trying to be, I think, a little bit flippant. He was asked to do a speech a few minutes before he was asked to get up and say something. And, you know, he also talks about really specifically girls crying because they can't separate the criticism of their ideas from themselves personally.
I'll tell you what, he'd work hard to make my wife cry, I'll tell you that. Yeah. Not all girls cry.
Not all girls cry.
Have you had girls who cry? Have you employed girls? Have you made girls cry?
I've made men cry, John, so be afraid. And
I always am with you.
Yes. And I'm not close enough to kick you, unfortunately. But I see it on a daily basis. You know, in corporate life, we have 360s, don't we? 360 feedback. And I see women crumpled at their computers in floods of tears because they can't handle what someone said about their work. And that's the point he's making, is that women won't disassociate themselves with the critique of their ideas. And his point is that detracts from the science because he is the ultimate pursuit of the truth. Jonathan,
this is sexist stuff. Come on, Katie. I mean,
as a woman,
PhD student Sarah Ryan has got it right, isn't she? She said maybe the girls in Tim Hunt's lab were crying because he's a sexist, and I can't repeat the second word she's used. But, you know, he's out and out sexist. And somebody else has said, Hugh Alderley Williams, another science author, has said, astonishing how clever Nobel laureates sometimes are not.
Jonathan, I'm going to interrupt you there because, quite frankly, that's just typical of people. If you can't win an argument without swearing, then, frankly, you've failed at the first hurdle. Now, really clearly, he said today, look, I'm really, really sorry I caused any offence. That's awful. I didn't mean that. I just meant to be honest, actually. That was his phrase today on the BBC website and on radio, where he was hauled out and shook until he apologised.
No, there are limits.
There's not limits,
whether it's true
Jonathan.
Or not, there are limits to what you say, particularly in public.
Oh, for goodness sake. All he said was, it would be more helpful if we split labs in 2, women in 1 and men in the other. That's not that outrageous. This is 2015. Get over yourselves. It strikes me that people these days are getting more and more conservatives. The walls are closing in, and the list of things we can't say is now longer than the list of things we can. And I can't stand that. Feminists can go and do one, as far as I'm concerned, Jonathan. And actually, I think Sir Tim Hunt... Jonathan's, I think, rather charming. It's what mothers call children when they're naughty. And I think Sir Tim Hunt has done a great thing for society. And I think the Royal Society need to take a look at themselves in the mirror. They made him a Nobel laureate. And today they're saying he's speaking for himself as an individual. Well, he doesn't represent us.
If he's done such a great thing, and if he was only joking, it's a matter of no consequence or concern whatsoever, why has he issued this grovelling apology?
Because, you see this happen time and time again, don't you? You see it on Twitter. People are shamed. John Ronson's just written a brilliant book called, I'm being shamed, essentially. And that's what Twitter is now. It's this mob mentality where you are supposed to conform with very tight parameters of things that society now accepts. I operate outside of those parameters. I never say sorry for anything that I've said. And I very much support him. And I hope he carries on.
There will be women listening to you on LBC tonight.
Throwing their high heels at the radio.
Kicking the wall with anger.
Well, maybe they need to get a sense of humour, and maybe female scientists need to get a sense of humour as well.
Katie, thank you very much indeed.
Jonathan, my pleasure.
Nothing if not entertaining.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.